Yes, yes. Good morning, colleagues. Very nice to see a big crowd and a great interest in the LTF In-session workshop. Before we will provide you with a short introduction on the background and objectives of this workshop, we are honored to have Ambassador Aziz Mekouar, pardonnez-moi, representing the COP22 presidency, and Patricia Espinosa, the Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC, Climate Change Secretariat. They will give us opening remarks. We all appreciate, we thank you for taking the time in your busy schedules to address this workshop. And without further ado, I would give the Executive Secretary, Patricia Espinosa, the floor.
Good morning, everyone. My dear friend, Ambassador Aziz Mekouar, President of COP22. Dear friends, the two co-facilitators, Ambassador Janine Felson from Belize and Stefan Schweiger from Switzerland. Dear colleagues, dear friends, it's indeed always very encouraging to start the week with such a full room of people eager and enthusiastically engaged in trying to look for ways to bring our process further. I'm delighted to speak to you at the opening of this in-session workshop on long-term finance. These annual in-session workshops are critical to the ongoing efforts to scale up the mobilization of climate finance. An important milestone in long-term finance was reached last year through the second high-level ministerial dialogue on climate finance at COP22. Under the able guidance and leadership of Ambassador Mekouar, progress was made on a number of issues, including support for readiness activities and funding for adaptation. I thank you for that, Ambassador. Finance, as we all know, is at the very heart of the successful implementation of the Paris Agreement. And beyond that, finance is at the very heart of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, of which number 13 refers precisely to climate change. In Marrakesh, I underlined that without the needed financial flows, both the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals will largely remain a promise rather than a transformative reality. Taking it from policy frameworks down to specifics, unless the right frameworks are in place and unless there are concrete programs, projects, and clear investment opportunities, we know that finance will not flow. This is as true for public finance as it is for private finance. I am happy that this workshop will address both public and private sector funding, as well as access to finance, because there is much work to be done on these issues. On public finance, we have many funds at our disposal, including the Green Climate Fund, the Global Environment Facility, and other multilateral funds. Funding through these institutions needs to become accessible with greater ease. For this, the right frameworks and processes need to be put in place, including within those institutions. Thanks to the leadership of Ambassador Mekouar, this is another area in which progress was made by ministers at the second high-level ministerial dialogue in Marrakesh. Your deliberations on this issue here will be critical to augment those outcomes. With the Paris Agreement's entry into force and the SDGs, we have now entered the era of implementation. It's likely that a number of adjustments, including the building of capacity in multilateral funding institutions, need to be made to fully embrace the new era. It is also of critical importance that multilateral funding institutions incorporate climate change and sustainability into all their policies for funding. On the recipient side, processes within countries that are aimed at securing multilateral funding may also need to be adjusted to reflect this new phase of action. Dear friends, the agenda on sustainability and the Paris Agreement open up huge opportunities for investment that are attractive to businesses. But these opportunities need to be clearly identified and communicated. This workshop provides a space to dive deeper into gaining a full understanding of developing countries' needs. As countries embark on turning their NDCs into clear investment strategies, programs, and projects, the private sector will play an increasingly important role in implementing and funding. For this to be successful, we need processes that are both sustainable and economically viable. The right frameworks to attract finance at a lower cost need to be put in place. This is especially important for developing countries. Due to the transformational potential of private finance, it is vital that the 2017 and 2018 in-session workshops continue to discuss enabling policy frameworks and credible long-term planning. Operations and the outcomes of these in-session workshops, and as we fully embark onto the path of implementation, you have a key opportunity to move these important issues forward. Dear friends, we need to move purposefully on these aspects. We all know that the most vulnerable need support. Through the implementation of SDGs and the Paris Agreement, we have the opportunity to create a better, safer world for all. Let us ensure that the poorest and most vulnerable are at the center of that world. Let us make sure that we transform the reality on the ground. The outcomes of these workshops will be of direct relevance to the COP and the ministers attending the biennial dialogues. Specifically, the 2017 in-session workshop will be one of the key elements that informs the third high-level ministerial dialogue in 2018, and I encourage participants to ensure that your discussions identify action points for consideration by the COP and the biennial dialogue. I urge you to use this opportunity to the fullest, and I look forward to the outcomes and wish you a very fruitful workshop, and also that you have a better understanding through this dialogue of each other's views and also the needs of the countries in the different regions. Thank you very much and have a very good and fruitful workshop.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary. Ambassador, probably you want to speak from the podium too. Yeah. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you here. And very quickly, when I came into the process last year in February, the first meeting was in Tokyo. It was an informal meeting, and that was my first real contact with your world. And I immediately understood that what this is all about, what is a lot about, it's finance. And when we talk finance, we talk capacity building. And I always thought from the very beginning that those are the two pillars of what we are going to do and what we have to do in the next years. Executive Secretary, thank you very much for your kind words. And it was a pleasure to work with you, and nothing would have been possible at COP22 without you and valuable help. At COP22 in Marrakesh, climate finance was a major theme, with the publication of a roadmap of $100 billion. The roadmap reported on progress made towards the 2020 target and set out pathways towards reaching the US $100 billion by 2020. The second high-level ministerial dialogue on climate finance, with its multi-stakeholder approach to mobilization and delivery on adaptation finance. The launch of several climate finance initiatives, the Climate Action Peer Exchange Platform, the Marrakesh Pledge to foster green capital markets in Africa, the Green Growth Infrastructure Facility, and many others. As you know, the Moroccan Presidency considers climate finance to be one of the main axes of its work in 2017, with the Climate Finance Pathways that focuses on three axes: promote positive fiscal and budgetary policies, increase finance available for adaptation, deepen private sector involvement through leverage that is sensitive to the diverse context that prevail in developing countries. During discussion in Marrakesh, a decision was made to dedicate the next 2 years workshops to articulating and translating needs identified in country-driven processes into projects and programs, roles of policies and enabling environments for mitigation and adaptation finance, facilitating enhanced access. The main objective today is to have technical, action-oriented discussions on these aspects and to arrive at practical findings and conclusions to be considered by the COP. In particular, today we want to arrive at a better understanding of how climate finance needs identified and assessed by developing countries can be articulated and translated into projects and programs, including through international cooperation. Identify steps and actions that can be undertaken to improve access to climate finance, achieve greater clarity on the policy and regulatory environment needed to scale up climate finance. It's a long-term learning process that we all are already engaged in. We have good experiences, but we need to build on those. We need to understand what best practice looks like and what practical steps we can take to drill down into the precise needs on a country-by-country basis, how to improve transparency in climate finance flows, how to ensure access to international climate finance, and sharpen our understanding of the policy and the regulatory changes we need to make so that climate finance can scale up and be more effective in attracting private sector investment. I have the chance to hear experts and practitioners from the financial mechanism, from governments and agencies and the multilateral development bank and think tanks. As we need to raise our ambition to meet the objective of the Paris Agreement, concrete and impactful considerations on means of implementation are very important for both the pre-2020 and the opportunities provided by nationally determined contributions and national adaptation plans. Madam Secretary, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, your active participation in the discussions and breakout groups today is invaluable. In order for us all to benefit from this workshop, I urge you to speak frankly and to focus on detailed practical steps that we can take to scale up climate finance while at the same time making it as effective and accessible as possible. Thank you very much, and I would like to hand over to our esteemed co-facilitators, Ambassador Janine Felsen, Belize, and Stefan Schweiger, Switzerland. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Mekouar, for your words, and thank you, Executive Secretary Patricia Espinosa. I think we got the expectations and also the encouragement, and also the how would I say, the context. We heard what the COP presidency, what COP 22 delivered, and the direction, I believe, is the right one. So up to us to have a frank and open discussion, and then also thinking of how we pass that one on to the high level dialogue. That's where these ideas that we can generate, consider it an opportunity, will be picked up at the highest level, and hopefully moving the agenda at the right speed in the right direction. With that, I would like to thank our two speakers. Thank you very much for having been with us to launch this day. And I hand over to Janine for the formal opening.